the NRS, Australia's 2024 series, wraps up in November, that'll be it. It will be no more. It will be gone. Some say the best domestic road racing comp we've seen in this country, more than 15 years of history, it's done. But guess what? It's being replaced with something new, something fresh, something different. The Pro Velo SuperLeague is kicking off next year, and it's being helmed by a former pro and a guy that they call the Everywhere Man.
The
Just
Everywhere
pops up
Man.
everywhere in Australian cycling, the director of ARO Pro Cycling. And guess what? I'm just tickled pink to say that he joins us right now on the Wheelhouse Cycling Podcast. Matt Wilson, hello and welcome to The Bunker.
Good. I nearly broke into tune there. I've been everywhere, man.
Is that is that a moniker that you have given to you face to face, or is this just a media moniker?
No, that was one article said that. It was a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
had a bit of a chuckle about it. I got called a journeyman once. I don't really know what that means either, but anyway.
Okay.
I don't know. I like it though. We might. You might have to get used to it, Matt. We might. We might pick that one up. Thanks for joining us today.
The Everywhere Journeyman.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll work on that. We
Rolls
love
off the
working on
tongue.
nicknames here, Matt. Let's talk about the Pro Velo League. A lot of talk about this new league coming in next year. Let's get it from you. I think that's a pretty important source to go to. What's inspired it? I guess what's the gap in Australian cycling that you're looking to fill here?
Oh, look, I think it's been coming for quite a while. I've obviously been involved in the NRS now with the team for 6 years. I think this is our 6th year. In that 6-year period, we've seen it go from a really strong place to steadily, going into a less strong place. So it needed to evolve and it needed to change. And in order to do that, there needed to be a bunch of money come into it, essentially. And it's really hard to get a commercial partner to come in and sponsor something when there's quite a low value to it. There's no one watching the NRS. It was getting pushed further and further out into the country. It was getting run earlier and earlier in the morning. There's, a broadcast wrap up that was done a week or so later as a half an hour highlights package that no one was really watching. So the commercial value wasn't there. So we really needed to come in with some private equity and boost it back up, get money back into the sport, get it back where people can watch it, get an interesting broadcast and bring the commercial value back into it so we can start to get some fresh teams back and start to grow the sport in Australia again.
Let's talk about road cycling in Australia. And you alluded to this earlier, that the growth and the development and the support for riders in Australia. What are the initiatives? What are the measures you're taking to foster this growth with the new series?
We need to make this commercial again, and we need to bring sponsors back. And unless we do that, unless we can make it commercial, then domestic road cycling is going to dry up in Australia. And what's the effect of that? Well, then there's a pathways issue. How do people get introduced to cycling? Where do young riders learn? And then how do they make that transition to Europe? And we're already seeing young riders having to make the decision to go to Europe as high school students and go over there to race because there's a lack of racing in Australia. And that's a tough decision for, a university person to make if they're going to go to uni or be a bike rider. But for a young kid to decide on school or being a cyclist is crazy, really. So we need to create pathways and we need to make sure that we have a healthy road cycling future. And, I don't see this as the end of the NRS and the start of something new and there's any sort of failure there. I think this is an evolution. It's an evolution of the NRS. And, a lot of the top events from the NRS will be included in the Pro Velo SuperLeague next year.
How's the reaction from the community been? We've heard a little bit of noise in here. We talked about it with your friend and co-director at ARA, Hank Vogels, last week. But have you had much feedback since the announcement about what the broader cycling community thinks about the plan?
Look, it's overwhelmingly positive. I mean, everyone's just so excited that there is a strategy in place and that there's going to be something fresh and exciting coming back to road cycling. There's, obviously we're at the very start of this journey. It's taken a long time to get here. And then we have a long way to go. We're under no illusions about that. And there's a lot of people that don't really understand, or we still need to consult with them about how it's going to work. So some people are still working through those issues, but the support and the excitement from the vast majority of people has been fantastic.
I want to ask you about the inclusion side of it. We're often lamenting the lack of exposure, the lack of love given to women's events on the calendar and the classics and whatnot. You've got big plans for men's and women's competitions. How do you plan on making sure we've got equal representation opportunities for male and female riders, Matt?
So everything within the PSL, it will be equal in terms of media coverage, prize money, everything. I guess there'll be 6-person teams at each event, and that'll be the same across men's and women's. So there'll be complete equality. I hope that at the moment, there's always more men's teams registered than women's teams, and we get more men's riders than women's riders. So that part's out of our hands. I really hope we can get a full women's field on the start line and more women's teams registering. I've had calls from a couple of people that really want to start a team and get a team in the league, and they're committed to both men's and women's teams as well. So, yeah, really excited to have that. And look, we've obviously had ARA Skip Capital now. It's in its 6th year, and we've had women's teams in one way or another every year of that journey. And now we have complete equality continental teams across men's and women's as well.
I know Merxie's going to be listening intently here because one of his greatest bugbears is coverage, broadcast quality.
Everyone knows that sports need TV dollars. What's going to be different with this competition?
The coverage and the broadcast is absolutely critical because until we can get people watching it, then sponsors can get a return and we can get a healthy, vibrant, sustainable cycling economy back. So in order to do that, and we need to be really honest that in Australia, cycling's a 3rd-tier sport. And within that sport, we're talking about a 3rd-tier competition. So we can't hide that fact. That is true. But what we can do is create a really interesting broadcast package, and we're committed to showing every race in the series at least in part live. So hopefully that's at least the last hour. It may not be every stage, but certainly the one-day races as well, at least the last hour, and creating a really interesting broadcast product. So not just sitting there with the riders riding the break and some commentary and that's it, we do a wrap-up. We want to create stories around the riders, and I think that's what's going to get the audience in. And the goal in the beginning is to capture the Australian cycling audience first. So everyone out there that's watching the Giro and the Classics, Tour de France we'll put aside because that's a different audience, but all those key cycling races around the world, if they're in Australia and they're watching those races, we need to create a product that they want to watch as well. So if we can capture them, then we're on the right track. And I think driving stories around those athletes, around the teams, is really the key part of the puzzle. And we want to capture a lot of content and use that during the broadcast so people can learn about those riders and where they come from, what their hopes and ambitions are, and just do the broadcast in a different way. We've got a plan to, if it's possible, mic up some of the riders in the race to give an interesting perspective there. We want to have cameras and microphones in some of the team cars as well, where we can link up with directors and hear what's going on there. Any way that we can to create an interesting broadcast package to get people watching.
Yeah, because sorry, Kate, but there's heaps of amazing characters in cycling, and you can see that with their personal social media. But they're always stuck under a helmet or sunnies, so it'd be good to see more of them.
That's right, and most of the young athletes nowadays, they're so savvy with that sort of thing on their social media. They're not afraid of sitting in front of a camera and talking about themselves, and so we've just got to draw that out of them. We're going to put together a really great social media plan where we can talk about those stories of those riders and pump it out, and so people start to understand a little bit about them, and really create so heroes and villains and different stories around the teams, around their team culture and where they've come from, and hopefully create something interesting.
Well, Matt, just in case you need, I know 2 people who are quite interested in, creating content differently for the fans. So you can just pop that on the in the back of your mind. Now, serious question. A lot of people, I come from a track background. A lot of people on the track side have been asking the question, what does this mean for the track season? And for some of the existing events, the long, some of our oldest races like the Austral. Did you think about scheduling in that regard? Have you talked to Oz Cycling about potential overlaps and whether there'll be any meaningful impact to those athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. We know it's really hard to make everybody happy, and it's really hard to create something that's going to work for everybody. So, that period of time we're trying to run it between January and the end of March, April is obviously a tight package. A tight time frame, and there's a lot of cycling going on there, and it's going to get even busier now. But it doesn't suit anybody for us to clash. So we just need to work together with the calendar to make sure that we don't have any clashes. Like I said, it's going to be busy for a lot of riders, and I guess that's a good thing. And looking at our calendar and how it's gone this year, I think Track Nationals is just one that we have to schedule around for sure, and Bendigo Madison as well. We've just got to talk to that event and make sure we schedule around it and there's no clashes. Austral, I believe, is in December. Is that right?
It has been. Yeah, I think one of our listeners pointed out that they were looking at changing dates, but now this would change that. But that's really great what you've said in terms of even mentioning the Bendigo Madison, like making sure that we can create this beautiful symbiosis between all of the different disciplines in Australia. On that, it kind of creates this really bumper season, which, by the way, I think could be really great from a broadcast perspective. Like, you've got a lot of people already tuning into sport in summer in Australia, so I think that that's a real plus. But in terms of winter, Hank, when he was on, mentioned that that's an opportunity for riders to then head to Europe, and for riders who are only interested in being domestically based, it means that they can get on with their jobs and do normal things and it not be such a balance. But Matt, since you are the everywhere man, people have also been asking about what are we now going to do with the winter? Is it just going to be like a big hole in Australian cycling, or is this another opportunity for you, because you seem to have lots of room in your diary, to maybe do something even like esportsy, so people don't have to train out in the wet and cold, but can still get that competitive progression?
The reality is that the NRS as it is currently, there's a couple of events through that period. It's not really enough to sustain a rider trying to develop and trying to make a career out of it. So there needed to be a period of time where they could go and pursue other things. What fills that vacuum, what fills that void, we don't know yet. I've already had some conversations with teams talking about, targeting state-based competitions around Australia, and potentially, this will give them an opportunity to bolster up that side of things. There'll be more teams, hopefully. There'll be more riders. They'll have a bit more finances behind them, and maybe that'll help assist those more grassroots state-based events as well. Esports is a good one as well. I'm sure there's some opportunities there.
Well, we're biased. We did we did the broadcast a couple of weeks ago, Matt, for the Aussie Esports Championships, and it was a riot.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
And from a broadcast perspective, we got a lot more viewers than the old NRS got, because you can create such a dynamic product. That's why it's front of mind for me.
Yeah, I want funding, Matt. So really exciting ambitions and growth, sustainability and all of that. Are you confident in the models you've got in place as far as paying for this, and then when those costs increase and growing bigger, better, evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, look, we've got 3-year, 5-year, 10-year budgets going at the moment. But, when you look forward that far, you never know where the world's going to be at that point. But we're very fortunate to have Jerry Ryan involved in cycling in this country, and he was the first person that we went to with this, and he's backed it immediately, and he knows what's necessary to get this back and back going well and back into a healthy state. So look, it's one of those things. The money's not going to last forever, though. What's important is that We need to get eyeballs back on this. We need to make this commercial again. And, as long as we're heading in the right direction, there's time there to make it work. We all understand it will take time, but it's not going to last forever. If we don't get the cycling community, especially backing this, if we don't get eyeballs back on it, if we don't get commercial partners back involved in the sport, Jerry's not going to pay the money forever. So, we need to make it work.
Yeah, and look, conscious that you need to go, Matt, but I have another question, and it's from a fan perspective. This will look a little bit different for fans, I would imagine, both on the road side, and we've talked about what it would look like on the broadcast. As I understand it, this will bring cycling closer to the main cities and potentially give fans a better opportunity to head out and see the action.
Yeah, so there's 7 events in the beginning, and the reason we've made it 7 is we need to keep it economically possible for the teams. We can't spread it too big too quickly. So we've got plans to expand if it goes well in the future, and also to bring it more and more back into places where people can watch. In year 1, we're really focused on each one of our tours to have at least one stage in a city centre. So criteriums, it's been hard to put a road race in a city centre, but we can bring a criterium to a city centre for sure. So all the tours will run under the same format, which is a 3-day tour. The reason for that is it's possible for staff and riders to have a job. They can come in on a Friday lunchtime and then do a Friday night criterium and be at home on a Sunday. So, but yeah, the first stage of each one of those tours, we really want to put into a city centre, Friday night, under lights, some great music, hospitality areas, bring people out of the offices and try and get people watching cycling again.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. What about where are we seeing it? What deals have been crunched? Can we get a bit of a wheelhouse scoop here, Matt? Other than the deal you've signed, obviously for exclusive broadcasting rights to the Wheelhouse podcast, where else are we seeing it?
So there's 3 events that are existing events that were sort of the stalwarts of the NRS, which was the Grafton Inverell and the Warrnambool, the classics. The Tour of Tasmania as well will be there. And then there's going to be 4 new events, one in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane. So the exact courses are still being worked through. As I said, we're early, but they're starting to take shape. Can't give you any exclusives at this point. But it's taking shape.
Dang it! Well, you tried.
I did try. Does it start with S and end with S? Does it start with S and end with N? No.
Does it start with N and end with it? No. Okay.
All right, fair enough. Hey, Matt Wilson, really, really exciting times and some good insights. So it's an ambitious initiative, but it's a thorough one. It's a comprehensive one. I wish you all the very, very best with it, Matt.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I agree. It is ambitious, but like I said before, if we can get the cycling community behind it, if we can get people excited, and we can bring some sponsors out of the woodwork, it'll work. I'm sure.